it's great to see you again. Thank you for joining us for Beer with the CFO. Today's topic is 3 cost management tactics to survive economic uncertainty. And you've got a thirsty goat over there, which I'm sure a lot of people are thirsty goats after doing the Camp Gladiator workouts. I actually have so I couldn't get thirsty goat in my area because that's out of Austin. So I got a Melvin, and it looks like a Gladiator.
It does. I haven't heard of it, but I'm sure it's good if it's in your neck of the woods.
Right. It's out of Alpine, Wyoming, and their slogan is, if your beer is not madness, it's not beer. So I thought that's perfect for a discussion with Phil over at Camp Gladiator. Thank you for, absolutely. Yep. Camp Gladiator was nominated by Forbes as a Small Giants winner, which recognizes the best small businesses in America that value greatness over growth. That's really cool. I hadn't heard of that award. You're backed by Sovereign's Capital, and you have 800 trainers across 11 states with about 100 employees in Austin, Texas, where your headquarters is, and tens of thousands of subscription members. So today we're going to talk about cost management tactics to survive economic uncertainty. I actually read in the Forbes article that Camp Gladiator retained 90% of your customer base during the pandemic. So can you tell us your cost management tactics to survive economic uncertainty outside of the obvious ones like reducing expenditures?
Sure. Well, obviously going into COVID, there was just a high degree of uncertainty for us as there was for everyone. We definitely benefited from the fact we have an outdoor fitness program. And so in some ways it's inherently, safer, more accessible. And then we added virtual there as we went. And so, once we got past that initial pivot, just to make sure our community, our members were still engaged, connected to their trainers virtually, and then again, outdoors pretty quickly within a month or two, we started doing a wide range of scenario planning and thinking about how could things go. And coming out of that, we obviously looked at things like cost, right? We looked at, first of all, the opportunity in front of us. Where do we need to invest on the virtual side? Where do we need to invest on making more people aware of our outdoor fitness offering at a time when gyms are being closed? But then also looking at the cost, right? And so looking at several different scenarios that we imagined could occur. We were super fortunate that actually our performance exceeded even the lightest of the reduction scenarios. And we actually had a growth year in 2020 in terms of total members. And so that was a good experience. But all throughout it, we recognized it was a very dynamic environment. There was no way to predict exactly what would happen. And so, one of my kind of primary mantras through the period, and this has always been a favorite of mine, was just to maintain massive flexibility. And so anything that involved, whether it was, an enterprise Zoom subscription or even bigger decisions, just to make sure we're not locking ourselves up in term or in a pricing structure that was untenable, or a new product rollout that couldn't throw off viable margins for the long term. And so that would just be the first thing I would say, is just maintain massive flexibility. And of course, can speak to some other things, but we'll just pause there.
Right. Well, I've talked with a lot of CFOs during Beer with the CFO, and a lot of them were really thriving in uncertain times. How do you approach modeling your business for different scenarios in a downturn? How did you thrive?
Yeah, it's a great question. What we did, sat down with my head of FP&A at the time, and we said, all right, here's the plan we thought we were going to be running on this year. Let's talk about some different versions of that. And let's look at a version where things are down. I don't even remember the exact percentages at each level now. Maybe it was down 20%, 40%, 60%. I know that third version was a pretty, massive decline scenario. And we had to kind of push ourselves to go there. And that would be my main recommendation, is if you're facing uncertainty or potential downturn, go ahead and map out, maybe it's not worst case scenario where like the company just folds and all the customers go away, but go ahead and map out a scenario that seems very difficult, unprecedented. There's no way to off the cuff figure out how you would make it. because until you kind of run to the fear, right? Like that's what everyone's afraid of. Like, oh, what if things get really bad? Whatever really bad means for you. And unless you've actually gone there and gone ahead and done some ad hoc modeling of that version, you're going to be left with the uncertainty. Like, what does that mean? Do we have to lay off a bunch of people? Do we have to, get out of certain investments? Do we have to shut down parts of the business? What would that scenario mean? Or maybe we have enough cash to get it through. And so until you model it, you don't actually know. It's just something to be afraid of. Once you've modeled it, then you're like, okay, we see what we're dealing with here. It might be okay, it might be bad, it might be really bad, but now at least you have a little more visibility. And at least for me, the uncertainty is what drives me crazy more than even kind of the prospect of a bad result, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And we talk to a lot of new CFOs, and they may not have gone through this type of uncertainty in their past because they're new CFOs. Do you have any guidance for things to avoid overlooking, right? In a downturn, don't avoid overlooking these things. What would you say there?
Sure. Well, I would say my first major downturn I went through in my career was the 2008 to 2009 timeframe, which most of us remember well. And I was in the construction industry actually at the time. And that was a very different kind of downturn because unemployment was rising at the same time. The market was tanking at the same time construction was tanking. It was all kind of moving together the way you would expect those economic indicators to normally move. And so while we certainly were caring about our people, generally people were just thrilled to still have a job. In that case, we had to do some layoffs. We had to sell some assets, had to refinance a bunch of debt, and people were just thrilled to still have a job. And I think we all took pay cuts as well, if I remember. This downturn is a little bit different, right? And so if you're facing a challenging season or an uncertain season and you're making cost reduction moves, you're doing other things as needed to continue to thrive in the future, I think something you don't want to lose sight of is the human element, because now your best people, despite economic uncertainty and potential downturn looming, your best people are actually still in high demand with low unemployment. The technology industry, many industries are out there hiring good workers. And so even as you're managing to avoid a crisis or to manage costs, you have to really think about those top employees. And I've found that even in a downturn or uncertain situation, that can be just an incredible career development period for your top employees, right? Learning how to manage through crisis, on the finance side, learning all the scenario modeling we were just talking about. On the people side, how do you communicate? How do you cast vision? How do you keep people excited about the future, which you may believe is great, but if you can't find a way to communicate that and bring your best people along for the ride, it actually reduces the chance of executing on that vision. So that would be the main thing I would point out.
Yeah, we interviewed Bolanle Williams-Ali, and she's a best-selling author, and Forbes identified her book as one of the top 25 books to read for CFOs in the summer of 22. And that's what she said is, during a downturn, lean in. That's your opportunity to really shine. And so, giving your talent that you have on board, giving them that opportunity to really lean in and, navigate through the difficult times is going to help them elevate in their profession as well. So Absolutely. Great advice. Thank you, Phil. Well, I'm going to enjoy this Melvin Camp Gladiator guy over here, and you enjoy your Thirsty Goat. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see everyone on the next Beer with the CFO. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.